2017 at 7:05 p.m. Call to order this meeting of the Brattleboro Development Review Board. As you in the audience can see, we only have 4 members. That is the minimum for a quorum. We have a 5th member, Michael Goin, who has offered to vote after watching a video. Ordinarily, we have 7 members, and the people who are applicants have the choice of waiting to see what the other people think and continuing to a hearing when they all attend. What do we have right now? Do we have 6?
Yeah, we're down to 6.
Yeah, so our maximum is 6. So we're really 1 short this evening. Does anybody have any conflicts of interest, by the way?
No.
Okay. So anyway, what we tend to offer and what many people tend to take us up on is to start your hearing and give you kind of a straw poll of where we're at. And then if you have the 4 votes that are necessary for approval, great. You can take the vote and be on your way and have your permit. And if there's some, if there's a lack of clarity as to whether you can get the 4 votes, you can ask for a continuance to see what the other people who are not here will say after hearing the recording. And we can do that again next month, which will actually be either probably October 22nd or 29th. So that's what I want to tell everybody just beforehand, and then I'm going to go through my normal opening remarks to tell you about how we do things here. At the DRB, we hear applications for land development in the town of Brattleboro and appeal of zoning administrator decisions. Procedurally, we operate on the record, which means we take a clear record of testimony from the applicant and any interested parties and then issue a written decision with our findings. Applicants and members of the public should be aware that because we're on the record, this is your only opportunity to comment on and provide evidence relating to your application or another application. In the event our decision is appealed to the environmental court, that court will only take into account what happened on the record tonight at its hearing. It won't take additional testimony or evidence for itself. And it will look at how our board applied the law to the evidence that we take tonight. Only interested persons that participate in this proceeding may appeal a decision made by this board, so I strongly encourage you all to speak up. As we're on the record, we're going to ask that you swear or affirm that your testimony will be truthful. So if anybody thinks they're going to speak, and because we have 2 applications and you 2 are the only ones here, I'm guessing that you are, if you could raise your right hand. Do you hereby swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the cause under consideration will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury? Okay. Applicants require a majority vote of the full board to succeed. That's 4 votes out of 7. I went over the procedure that's going to happen tonight in a little more detail than I usually do because we only have 4. After taking testimony, we will close the public hearing and we may vote on your application. The board will issue a written decision within 45 days of the close of the hearing. While we may vote on an application in the meeting, it's the written decision that controls the timeline for an appeal. The town of Brattleboro is a party with an interest in land use development applications. The town does not have special status before this board. Documents provided to the board by the town planning department, town attorney, or any other representative of the town are considered in exactly the same way as information from the applicants or any interested parties who might show up that aren't here now. It's a level playing field. First order of business is to approve our minutes from, Brian, is it July 17th?
Yes.
July 17th, 2017. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Any second?
Second?
Okay, any discussion on the minutes? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Passes 4-0. Mr. Bannon, has our meeting been properly warned?
Yes, it has.
Okay, we have no conflicts of interest. I already asked about that. Have there been any ex parte communications?
No.
Okay, our first application is 2016-129 for Artrageous. Artrageous 1 LLC. So our normal procedure, if you could come up to that table with the
Okay.
microphone, The reason you're up there is, and the reason we have these microphones is so that when we go on TV, on BCTV, they can hear us, but they don't actually amplify. So just talk to us the way you normally would.
All right, I have a loud voice, I'm a teacher.
Perfect. So can you tell us who you are, and then tell us about your project?
I'm Gail Weitz, and I'm the owner and manager and member of the Arts Collective at Artrageous 1, which is a group of artists, authors, and musicians, primarily from the area, that come together to sell their wares in the store. It's a collective because we don't have any employees, and people pay a fee, and then a certain amount from each sale goes back to the collective for marketing and maintenance. We are sandwiched between the Indo-American grocery store and Metropolis and Arkham bars. We have entries on the Honey Lot and Elliott Street. We have a lot of interesting characters that hang around that interfere with business, with whom we have good relations. And we're wanting to put a new sign on the back side, Harmony Lot side, to try to attract some attention for people that don't know a business like ours is next to the tattoo parlor, or I mean the head shop, the grunge bar, and empty buildings.
The former tattoo parlor, right?
Yeah, there was a tattoo parlor, now it's just empty. And we were just going to put signage, which we currently have, but Arkham, the bar, was given rights to extend out onto the sidewalk with a fence and umbrellas and assorted chairs. So if you're at the pay part where you pay for your meters, you can't really see our entry anymore because all that stuff is there. So we want to stick out some too. And we have a lot more room to stick out because the frontage in front of our store on Harmony Lot is much greater. So we would like to not extend beyond where they are, but perhaps about to where they are, with an awning that goes over the door and kind of a sculptural rendition of Artrageous 1 on top of that awning, and then a pole that holds the center of the awning up, and on the top is a kinetic sculpture that swirls around with multicolored glass pieces. It's not mechanized in any way.
And the awning is that the hood from a truck?
Yeah, it's a 1940 truck. And it's made by one of our members, Phil Pellerin, who specializes in taking farm parts and creating sculptures, tables and chairs and lamps. So he made that for us.
Pop-up exhibition down by the library?
Yes, he did. Yeah, that's him. And the whirligig he did not make, but I did a trade at a craft fair for it for one of my pieces to put up there. So what we'd like is permission to do that.
I'm just passing around the
Okay.
mock-up.
Okay.
I think that's a mock-up.
Yeah, it's
That's
a
a
lot.
mock-up.
No, he's already made it. That's the real thing.
Oh, it's just not there yet?
Yeah, we just haven't
I
installed
get
it.
I get it. I thought that
And we
looked
were
very
going to, we were
realistic.
supposed to be at other meetings, and we've had a lot of cross wires. And then we had to wait for the new concrete to be put in for the sidewalk.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. They just
Yeah.
put the new sidewalks in, so we're gonna have to install that.
Yeah,
into
even with the
sidewalk?
old sidewalk, it would go in the same way. It would be drilled into the sidewalk.
No, but they had just put that sidewalk. Do you have to get clearance to drill into that sidewalk?
That, we do get permission from the town to do that, yes. Although I think we're drilling in on our actual sidewalk. It's just the town, we gave the town permission to give us new sidewalk. So we're drilling into our actual sidewalk that the town put in. Correct?
Yes, we
Okay.
have an accurate survey for that, so when the time comes, we can determine the exact
Right.
location of the
You
boundary.
can come over that day when we have it there to show us where we can put it.
Sure will.
Okay.
How high up is the awning portion?
I think it's 8 feet, but I'll look at my drawing too.
But you can stand under it to shield yourself from the rain?
Yes.
That's
In the
not-
drawing that he has here, it is 7 feet 2 inches.
Is it actually gonna be over the door,
The door is inset from the facade of the building,
or
the opening, it's
it's actually gonna be over where
Yeah.
people walk when they enter,
Yes,
is it?
right.
I'm not texting, I'm looking at the relevant ordinance, by
Okay.
the way, just so you know.
And we haven't decided yet if we're going to paint the old hood. I told him I wanted to look at it first, so we would paint it on site. But if you've been back there, you'll see we have a very brightly painted building.
Okay. Is the whirligig the thing that's hanging from the hook?
No, that's just something he put there.
Can
The
we see-
whirligig gets attached to the post, it's not pictured there, there's a
Oh,
different,
okay.
there's a different, photo of the whirligig.
Oh, really? Oh, it's on the back. Where is it?
Well, I don't really know what you have.
Let me show you-
I
I'll
can
show
find
you-
I can
I'll
find
show
a
you what I
picture
have.
of it if you want me to,
Yeah, I'd
yeah.
like to see a picture of it.
I'm sorry to be so difficult. We have this,
Yeah,
and I think maybe that's the whirligig.
that's his
Oh.
rendering of it, yeah. No, I'll look it up for you.
Okay. Thank you.
I thought, I had attached a
It may
picture of
be,
it.
I mean, it may be my mistake.
This looks like it's attached, James. Not hanging.
Oh, does that have a whirligig?
Yeah.
Can I see that?
No.
For some reason, I only have
That's
these two
Brian,
pictures.
Brian just gave that to me, so.
Here, we can all look at
I have a video of it moving in the wind.
Kind of thing.
it. Oh, yeah?
May I walk up and show you?
Yeah, yeah.
Brian gets all the good stuff.
No, it's that page, it's this section right here.
Yeah.
It's in the
So
colors,
it's
just
just
the
turning
color
it.
pictures. Keep going, keep going, keep going. No, no. Keep going. Yeah. Yeah.
It's stainless steel, so it doesn't rust.
Oh,
and
wow,
it's
okay.
Made by an engineer, so the mechanics are really nice.
Yeah, I saw it on the pictures. This, on this picture here.
So you're
see?
fine?
It's attached? Yeah.
Okay.
Jen, you like that?
Yeah. Okay. I'll send that back. Oh, do you want to see this? You saw this, right? Okay, so, is there anything else the board has to ask? I'm sorry, was your
Gail
name was
Weitz.
Weitz?
Yes.
I'm good.
No? Are you a member of the public who came to speak to this application?
not,
You're
no.
not, okay.
Sounds
Great.
great to me, that.
It does sound pretty cool. So we have to discuss the following issues.
Right.
Is the proposed assembly an awning and similar accessory structure, and by that, I mean the 1940 pickup truck hood. And if it is, then they should be good to go. Do we agree with the zoning administrator's determination that that whirligig is a kinetic sculpture? And does the assembly conform to section 319, which means that it protects public safety, promotes effective identification, communication, and wayfinding, and maintains and enhances an attractive visual environment that fosters a healthy economy?
I don't know.
Deep. If I wasn't on the board that drafted these, I would try to make fun of them more. So let's just take this piece by piece. Does anybody here feel that this is not an awning?
You mean the hood or the
The hood.
whirligig?
No, the hood. The whirligig,
That it's not
I
an
think we all
awning?
agree is not
The
an awning.
British call it a bonnet, so, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's an awning.
Comfortable that that can be classified as an awning?
Yeah.
Okay. So question number 2, is the whirligig, well, actually, was the zoning administrator correct that the whirligig is a kinetic sculpture? Does everybody agree that he was correct?
Yes.
That is, okay, the chair agrees too.
Mhm.
And do we all agree that it is safe and helps identify the store and maintains and enhances an attractive visual environment that fosters a healthy economy.
I think so, yes.
If we
Yes.
accept that Brattleboro is kind of an artsy town, and this
Mhm.
makes sense. So having those three things in mind and our unanimous conclusion about them, can I have a motion to approve application 2016-129?
I so moved.
Second. Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you very
Great.
much.
And I want you to know we are doing our best to enhance the commerce.
It's a really cool sculpture. I like the way it counter rotates.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
reminds me
it's
of
really-
a Russian helicopter.
And so is that all?
The hormone.
You'll get a written decision.
Okay,
You just know what's coming.
and when we get the written decision, that's when we have to go ahead to put it up? So you'll just let me know?
Well, theoretically, if one of your neighbors is offended by this decision,
Uh-huh,
they could appeal it, although the fact that they weren't here would make
Right.
that a bit of a
yeah,
problem.
I'm on good terms with my
Okay.
neighbors,
Good.
and they know it's coming. So Brian, I'll just wait to hear from you. Thank you, everybody.
Have a nice night.
Have a
Thank
nice
you. Okay, our next application, 2017-132, Bell Center LLC for Eugene and Rebecca Lepkoff, or is it BEL Center?
It's Bell,
Bell,
just an acronym.
okay. And my guess is that you are a representative of Bell Center LLC.
I am in fact, yes.
Could you tell us who you are and tell us a little bit about the project?
I'm Jim Olson, and I am the executive director of the Bell Center and a partner with my clinical director, Michelle Santangelo. We started the Bell Center in 2015 and are looking for a place to sort of stabilize our business at the, we've grown quite a bit, but we're sort of at a place where we don't need to grow a lot more. We just want to be in the same place and be stable, and we located this building. We're currently on the Austin campus, but we'll be leaving the Austin campus. We are, so BELL stands for Behavioral and Emotional Learning Center. We work with individuals with mostly young kids with autism and emotional behavioral disabilities. We provide everything from social skills training to emotional regulation skills. We do small groups, we do after-school programs. We have a few students who come to us for a tutorial program during the day. They're contracted through pretty much schools here in Brattleboro and schools in Wyndham Central Supervisory Unit. Is that enough of a general intro, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you tell us about how many, it would be helpful if we knew the kind of traffic that's gonna be
Yeah.
going
So-
through the building and.
Basically, currently we have 2 students who come during the day, and they arrive between 8:30 and 9. They each are transported by their school district, which means essentially transportation pulls up in the front of our building. We walk out and meet them, and we walk them back in. They don't actually pull into a driveway, for instance. They come in.
There's a full shoulder there, right?
There's a full shoulder there, yeah. So, and we literally walk out, we meet them. They're not kids who could just come running off the bus. So we do that during the day, in the morning. Our staff all arrive around 8:15. We have currently 3 staff people who are there all the time. And my partner and I, unfortunately, are rarely in the building at the same time because we also do a lot of outside consulting. So we tend to have one of us in the building. But at the end of the school day, those same 2 students get picked up. One of them gets picked up by a parent, the other one gets picked up again by their school transportation. And about a half an hour later, we have the beginning of an after-school program. Those students, I think we have 4 students, but they come over the course of 4 days. There's never more than 3 of them in the building on a given afternoon. They tend to arrive between 3 and 3:30. Half of them are dropped off by their Brattleboro school bus. Once again, we walk out, we meet them at the bus. They tend to come on a special education bus, so they pull right up in front. When I walk out, we bring them into our building. Their parents then pick them up anywhere between 4:30 and 6 o'clock.
You said that a small number of staff will park in the driveway.
Yeah.
Can you
Probably three or four, and that is why we will need to probably expand. The good news is, right now, most of the staff come and they don't leave. They stay all day long. It's only my partner and I that ever really drive out during the day. But it is our plan to extend that, and I think I put that on the site plan, to try to add some sort of overflow parking, and also really change the direction of the way people can pull in, because currently it'll be a little bit tight up at the very end of the driveway there. Once we put that sort of pervious parking in there, people will be able to actually pull into the driveway, turn into that, and then back out again. And I've sort of done a quick little experiment a couple times with my car to see which places I could, and do I have enough room to back out and still make the turn, all of that sort of stuff. And that seems like it'll work. And the amount of space that I put there, when I've actually gone through and measured it, looks like it'll probably give us about 4 or 5 actual parking spaces, plus room at the very far back, up against there, where that would not be one of the parking spaces, because you wouldn't actually be able to swing around. So if, as I saw in here, there's a need for some sort of bicycle parking or something like that, that would be likely to go there. I do have some questions about some of those things, but we can get to those.
Okay. Is this right where the parking ends?
I'm sorry?
Public parking on the street.
It ends almost it ends literally right at our driveway. So there is some public parking out there too, and so.
And on the other side of the street as well?
And both sides, and I'll be honest with you, I've been paying a lot of attention to that, and I can tell you on that side, there's rarely anybody parked in those spots during the day from what I can see. So, obviously, if we had to, our staff could park there a little bit, because it is public, town parking, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of pressure on those parking spots because of the nature of what else is in the area.
Sure. I don't really have many other questions, do you folks?
How far is that an apartment house behind it?
The apartment, yeah, it's sort of an interesting, it comes up that dirt road along the side that runs between this property and the church property. And then it sort of swings around into this enormous building. I actually just walked back there the other day. It's an enormous building that looks like it has a few apartments that are over near, kind of just right around the back from us. They appear to have sort of a dirt parking lot back there. It's probably, from the back of the property, it's probably, 50, 75 feet. I'm not sure. I haven't walked it, but.
Okay, just curious.
I never knew that was there.
Nor did I.
Years ago, it all used to be one property.
What are the plantings gonna be? It says there's gonna be some bushes.
Well, that's what's interesting. I don't know where that came from. That was sort of, I think, an add-on. Our intention was, there's already some pretty thick plantings around the back that sort of screen the entire backside of the property. Our intention for the fence is that we do work with kids. We want to be able to have them out in our backyard, and it's better for both them and our staff if we don't have to worry about them eloping from the property.
Sure.
So while there are really thick bushes, we would probably put a pretty nice big screen fence, like probably about a 6-foot tall fence, across the side that runs parallel to the street. There are already some trees there, but those are not a thick planting, they're more trees. Then it runs up against some really thick bushes. There we would probably just put a smaller fence. Mostly that would be for making sure kids couldn't get out, not so much for screening, because there's really no screening needed at that point. And then that would run over basically towards the garage. We have considered, and we have considered bringing that fence around back to the building again, as opposed to running it out to the driveway, but it wasn't our intention to try to put that in immediately anyway. It's not something we have to have with winter coming, but it's just something we would like to have as an option for ourselves and down the road. In terms of the plantings, I did read in the document that I think I got from you, a requirement from some stuff around the front, and I then looked back at the pictures. I was a little confused by that, because it says there's a need for a tree to the west side of the driveway, although there's already 2 relatively large trees in that yard, so I wasn't sure exactly where that would go. And then it sounded like per zoning regulations, there was a need for some plantings along the sidewalk that leads up to the front door. And it sounds like maybe on the front corners of the two, I'm assuming those are just town requirements, or?
Yeah, that's correct, and then the street tree is based on the frontage, so it requires 4.
Oh, it requires another one, okay. And that's certainly not a problem for us to do that. The other things that I did see in the document I got, which was, were some things around, so the bicycle parking, that's obviously easy. I'm actually a bicyclist, so it's not a problem for me. I ride my bike to work anyway.
You'll do a rack?
We'll do a rack probably. We do have a garage, and we may initially just, there is already actually some places where you can hang a bike, where bank bikes could look like they've been hung in the past there, but eventually we'll probably put a rack there. We probably won't want anything too big because frankly we don't, other than me and maybe 1 or 2 other people, I don't imagine us having, hordes of people parking bikes at one time.
Right.
I did see some stuff around an electric vehicle. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure, you don't have enough parking spaces to require an electric vehicle charger.
Yeah.
But if you do have, you're gonna have an apartment on the site.
Yeah.
So there just has to be minimal provision, so somebody could plug in, so a 110 normal plug like one of those. If you have electric service in the garage, it could be in there.
So there already is, so that would already be settled, right? Because there is lots of, it's well wired inside there, and it probably would be my intention long-term to put one on the outside anyway, just for overall ease of use.
So that's fine.
So that would be fine, okay. And then there's some stuff, I just wanted to comment a little bit on the, or ask some questions about the stormwater provisions that are in there. So the building, as it currently stands, is there's 2 buildings on the property. There's the garage, and the garage is a simple gabled building, both directions. It drains off onto basically grass, so it doesn't drain off onto the driveway. And then the main building itself, we're not making any changes to the current shape of the building or to anything about how the water comes off of there. And again, all the water there comes off basically onto some sort of pervious surface. So it doesn't seem like there's really much of a need for any sort of a change there. Certainly, like I said, we have no intention to really change the external structure of either of those buildings anytime in the near future that we could imagine.
But the gutters on the roof do drain impervious areas?
They do all drain into pervious areas, and actually one of the things that the inspection, we did get an inspection done on the building, and they suggested the potential of adding a few gutters to it as just to keep water away from the foundation, but even then, of course, we would just direct that.
Mhm.
It's in our best interest also, because the last thing we want is that stuff going out into the driveway in the wintertime, and I've lived here long enough to know what kind of mess that looks like, so.
And speaking of winter, do you know what the plan will be with
Yeah.
snow removal?
So I was over there the other day just looking because we haven't contracted with anybody, but it looks to me like there'll be plenty of space for people to plow sort of straight to the back, and then once we put in that, we'll just have everything turned to the side and it'll all go off into the yard, kind of on the back side of where the new parking area would be there. So certainly none of it will be going, it'll all be being directed off onto the eastern side of the driveway on the side yard there. So my guess is they will probably sort of drive it in a couple different wedges and then some to the back.
Okay. And the meltwater is gonna be, that'll be on?
That'll all be on the grass surface, on some sort of impervious surface, yeah.
I'm wondering, I'm looking at the aerial shot, and I guess I need an explanation of what all these little circles are for.
I don't,
Yeah, that's from me, Catherine.
Oh.
There's a requirement for front yard landscaping,
okay, good,
and it calls for it to emphasize entrances.
perfect.
Right, so
So-
where are the parking space? First of all, I hate these, but I mean, where are the parking spaces going to end up? This tells me nothing.
So there's a proposed parking area that could be built in the future here out of that pervious
Okay,
system.
okay.
So it would be behind
And this is,
front yard bit.
okay, this is not part of that part of that, or is this another building that you
It's the
said?
back wing of this,
It is,
it's a really huge house.
okay. All right, thank you.
You know, we did, when we originally looked at the parking, we did consider moving it onto the other side of the driveway, kind of opposite that, but we would have to take out a relatively large, beautiful tree there, and it just seemed unnecessary, and there's a nice, beautiful stone wall that could be rebuilt, so rather than sort of tear up a part of the property that feels really nice, it seems like that was the most logical place for it. We may also, at some point in the future, there is a second garage door that's on the front of that garage building. It's currently kind of a little overgrown, but we may eventually decide to make that another sort of entryway, and so if the parking was there, it would be really easy to have some sort of little stone step walkway over to that doorway, because currently the only entrance into the garage is a very large garage door.
Any other questions?
Yeah, the fencing, now that's gonna go where?
Here.
Well, here is where on here. Is that, and the reason the fencing is there, is that to block out for neighbors, or?
Well, there's two things. One, it felt like putting the fencing across, running parallel to the street would block any, view of the backyard for neighbors, and the idea was to put a pretty attractive fence up so that if we do have kids out there playing or things like that, it couldn't even potentially bother anybody visually. But there's also the fact that we work with kids that we need to know where they are, and so in order to give them the most freedom, it helps us to know that there's a fence in the yard.
Okay, because we're looking at this, it looks like there's a lot of foliage, there's a lot of trees.
There's so
Down a lot
on
trees.
two of those sides, we would put a much shorter, we would probably just put a little 4-foot picket fence, just because the last thing we want is to be chasing a 5-year-old who's crawling through those bushes, and frankly, probably able to get through them a lot easier than we are. So that would be probably some sort of a 3 or 4 foot picket fence on our side of the bushes, pretty up close to them, so that they would, just so it would create more of an actual barrier.
But there's already the shrubs all the way around.
They're very, very tall. Yeah, they're probably 10, 12 foot. They're very thick, but as you get down towards the lower part of them, they obviously thin out a little bit.
Yeah.
Other questions? Okay, so I have here the conditions necessary to be compliant if we agree that the application is appropriate. The applicant add a street tree, bike rack, e-charging capability as required by statute. The water drain into pervious areas off the roof and gutters, and that snow be collected on pervious surfaces. That sound all right to everybody?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Lighting, anything about lighting?
I think the lighting's fine.
Okay. Just no off the site.
What's that?
You're not putting any lighting that will,
We are not changing the current lighting that's on any of the buildings at all. The only lighting that I think would have been in any question at all are, there are some lights on the upper part of the garage that are currently on a motion sensor. It will be our intention actually to communicate with Efficiency Vermont anyway. I'm a big fan of spending less on my electric bill, so I'll probably be going through the building and replacing almost every single light bulb in it with some sort of LED lighting right away anyway.
Okay. So with those conditions I just mentioned, can we have a motion?
so moved.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? I'll note for the record that there are no members of the public present. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much.
Great,
Have a nice
thank you.
night.
So can I just ask a question about, we're sort of on a time frame related to making this move, and because we are in the process of actually purchasing this building, so we will be, it's currently owned by the two folks there, but we'll be the owners of this building as soon as this was part of this was part of it.
Right.
I'm trying to make sense of this meeting and your vote and how,
We can get a permit out quickly.
okay,
What do you think, Brian?
We can get it out to you next week.
okay,
There's some additional change of use fees, but I'll
Fine.
communicate with you.
that would be fantastic, right, okay, great. Thank you so much, I appreciate your time.
Have a nice night.
Yeah. Looks like you guys get to go early, that's good.
Yeah. Motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion of that motion?
No.
Oh, well, I'd really like to talk about it for a while.
All right,
Quiet.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
Usually the same.
So we'll